Okay, so let me ask you this real quick. What is the most important guitar pedal in your rig right now? Like the thing you play the most, you're always on, like the thing that is most important in embracing your specific sound. Oh, you want to know mine? Well, thank you for asking. You see, I've answered that question a million different ways over the years, depending on who I've been most trying to sound like. When I wanted to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan, it was the Tube Screamer. When I went through my big Corey Wong phase, it was the CS3 from Boss. And when I finally got tired of carrying around my big heavy tube amp everywhere, it was the Line 6 Helix. And all of those pedals, because of a certain sound that I was trying to achieve at the time, really felt like they were setting the standard for who I was as a guitar player tonally. And the more I used those pedals, the more I knew those little details that would help me shape the sound on a more intricate, nuanced level. And in a much broader sense, with a lot of those sounds, I can honestly say I just kind of became pretty comfortable. But in learning more and more about this world of guitar, I've seen it time and time again that your comfort zone isn't always the best place you want to be if you want to see the most growth. And if we're still talking standard in the context of tonal growth, a lot of times I do think the new standard should be, well, a healthy level of discomfort. And that's where, well, a pedal sort of comes into the picture. And as you can probably see, I don't actually remember where I put it. Well, I have one sort of guess. Oh, wait, I remember now. Tasty pedals go in the fridge. So this is the Crush Tonal. It happens to be the latest pedal that I've gotten my hands on. Now, when I first took it out of this box, there are really only a couple things that I actually knew about it. The most important of which was that it was an ambient pedal. Now, I've been playing CCM music in churches for years and years and years. I know all about the world of hall reverbs, but when I picked up this, I noticed this wasn't just a hall reverb. No, this was actually a shimmer. Now, for those of you that don't know, a shimmer is a really ambient style of reverb that involves having your wet signal octave. And with pedals like this, you can get a really big cathedral type sound, like the type of thing that ambient music just thrives on. So while normally I might be used to something like a hall, something like a shimmer, you get a little more sauce. I realized that depending on how much diffusion I actually wanted, you could find yourself going from a little bit ambient to actual sound design textures like the stuff I've seen on the intros to Coldplay albums. What I also began to realize is that, like with a lot of the pedals that I was telling you about in the beginning, a lot of this ambient big reverb stuff, it's still relatively in my comfort zone, even if I don't use the shimmer a ton. I've done a lot of this before. I was like, where is the exploration? Where is the challenge? And then, well, I entered the delay phase. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking, Mike. There is no way that delay is a new thing for you if you've done any sort of ambient music before, even if it's not with a shimmer, and you'd be correct with that. In 99.9% of my live performances, I usually keep a dotted eighth note delay on at all times, even if it's just to add a little bit more texture to the hall reverb that's already going. So I start to throw on the delay on this pedal, and I'm like, okay, it's basically like every other delay that I've ever used, right? I mean, that's really simple, right? Nothing that I wouldn't or haven't used in a pop or worship setting a million different times before. But then I look down and I see this knob and it says sample rate. I'm like, sample rate? I've never used that before. That sounds kind of fun. Let me see what happens if I crank that a little bit. Maybe riff on some chords, right? That's okay. That's when things got serious. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where past Mike had to get into sample reducer territory. See, sample reducing is actually a very particular sort of distortion where you lower the resolution of your signal to give you a very specific effect. And you've probably heard it before. Really big artists like St. Vincent, Muse, Radiohead have used it on countless records to achieve a really unique tone. And in past days, before I knew about bitcrushing or sample reducing, I usually just attributed it to that weird fuzz tone that some of those artists like St. Vincent like. This is where we start to get into some of the sounds that a lot of people tend to associate with like video games. It's a very specific type of sound, but not only with video games. A lot of like hard rock bands will use it in some of their riffs. Like they'll combine it with a fuzz and they'll just go ham. But when you start looking at it as a part of a digital delay, which is usually supposed to be the one without the imperfections, that's when this gets really weird, because you can blend in some of those weird bit crushing noises and you're like, oh, that's kind of nice. That's kind of weird, like 2000s weird rock. Now, as you can probably tell, that Bitcrusher is a lot. It's very different from what I'm used to. I spent a lot of time just going through random knobs and seeing what I was doing. The moment when I really got to that healthy level of discomfort and challenge, much like with the Bitcrusher and the sample reducer, was once I started using the sequencer on this thing, which is what I think makes the pedal an absolute machine. This, much like with the Bitcrushing stuff, comes down to like playing around with everything and playing around with the different knobs, because that's what sound design is as a whole. It's just like embracing the happy accidents. At the end of the day, what's even the point of all this? Just to get some really weird sound? I think the point is to say that this is a pedal that I don't in any way fully understand. And this is a pedal that really embraced that healthy level of discomfort that I was talking about earlier. I think it's really cool that like I didn't really know what I was doing going into this. I think that's really the point when you're going deeper than just into the world of guitar, and when you're really entering that world of sound design and really being willing to embrace those times where you don't really know what you're doing and you're just turning knobs until something sounds good or something sounds different or something sounds like it'll really challenge your ear. And that's where I feel like pedals like this are really the new standard for me, or at least I want them to be. I want pedals to challenge me, and I want to bring that mentality back to the pedals that I've gotten maybe bored with or haven't felt like I've really pushed the envelope with in a long time. I want to use something like this and then go back to my Tube Screamer and say, how can I get weird? Because I know something like this is not going to be putting a Bitcrusher on my everyday church pedal board, still knowing what's appropriate for the certain scenario, even if I could really use the shimmer on this. That would be really cool. But trying to look at my Tube Screamer, look at my Boss CS3 and see how I can get some of those more intricate details and how I can sort of make that sound my own. And I think that's one of the most important things that we as guitar players can do. The experimentation that I learned with something like this or with the Chroma console and getting weird sounds, that's how the Jimi Hendrixes of the world, and that's how all the great guitar players back in the day got some of the sounds that don't even seem weird to us anymore, just seem like the normal standard. But I am excited to learn about this stuff because I know learning about sequencers and learning about sample rates and bit crushers and learning how to do them in a tasteful context is what sets those bands like Radiohead and what makes people call people like St. Vincent a savant. Because it's not even just that they're playing more advanced stuff than you, it's they're thinking on an entirely different wavelength, which is what really feeds into their genius. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think. What matters is what you think. So please let me know. Did you like the sounds that I was getting out of the Crush Eternal? Did you think they were way too weird for you? Have you tried the bit crushers and the sequencers before? Please let me know in the comments. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. This is one of the coolest challenges that I've taken on in a while. Even just getting to the point where I could experiment with it in a fashion that would help me understand it on any basic level took me a while, and I had to look up what actually is a bit crusher and what does a sequencer do. Thank you to the homies at Collision for sponsoring this video. If you want to know anything else about the Crush Eternal, the links are in the description. Make sure to check it out. One of the best ways to support the channel if that's something you want to do, or if you're just curious about any of the other gear that I used in this video, make sure to check out those links. Also, thank you so much to my patrons. There's some extra content coming that's really good on there. Like and subscribe if you had a good time, and most importantly, most important of all, have a fantastic night.